Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audience, and my dear fellow Californians. Welcome back to the show. I've been talking about politics for quite some time, so I say I still want you to come back on the table to continue talking about politics. Today, I have the pleasure of being visited by a grand man, a big
Mhm.
man of California. He is the chairman of the GOP party of Orange County. And Mr. Fred Whitaker is his name, but looking at the resume, and I kind of like to look at a monument. So before I start, I'll go to this, okay? As we go along, I will right now give you my warm welcome to the show, please.
Jack, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be back, and it's always a pleasure to be with your audience.
Very good, very good. Like I briefed him before the show, Jack Chow, had been kind of a little bit tilted to the left in the past. And for starting last year whatsoever, I dragged myself back to the middle of the road.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm still in the middle of the road, getting lost, only getting lost. And I believe lots of my audiences are the same way,
Hmm.
same thing, because we are in California, the state, California. So, with Mr. Whitaker, we hope that we get a chance to get to know GOPs. We believe that everybody deserves an equal
Hmm.
chance. So does the GOP.
Hmm.
The GOPs do deserve an
Hmm.
equal chance to be known by people,
Hmm.
right? So, how about that as a start?
Well, thanks, Jack. I think the thing that I'd like to have viewers know about the GOP is that we're a party of more limited government, meaning that we want to have less government at the federal level, less at the state level, and
Hmm.
the government more directly aligned with the people is the government that's closest to you at your city and county levels. If you have lower government, you're going to have a situation where people have more freedom. You have less regulation on business,
Hmm.
more economic opportunity, and that's really, in our view, what America is about. The more bureaucracy that we add on top of everything, it really just takes money out of the system
Hmm. Right.
to fill that bureaucracy, and
True.
then everything slows down. And I think in the last 8 years, you've seen that because we've been stymied at 1 to 2% growth. As you've been seeing in the last 8 months, while we have maybe a volatile nature in the country, you can't argue with the fact that regulation at the federal level has been lifted to quite an extent. We're now at almost 3% growth, something we haven't seen in 8 years. If we get tax reform passed at the federal level, you're going to see growth that'll be over 4%, and that's going to lift everybody's boat.
All right, and that would probably be the governing philosophy for a country, for our economy, right? Philosophically or ideologically, we really have to go into the foundation of the party
Yes.
and even goes into the comparison of the foundations
Right.
of the parties,
Hmm.
right? Before we go that far, I believe I owe my audience a little background information about Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker is a resident of Orange County. He has been very actively involved in Orange County, the civil issues of business and also economy.
Hmm.
I mean, the community. He's considered by a lot as community leader.
Thank you.
He's been on all kinds of positions, second president, vice president, and now he is the chairman of the GOP party of Orange County. And he is on the city council of Orange City.
Correct.
You are very orange. You're Orange
Thank you.
County, Orange City,
That's
right?
right.
Okay, now, and he calls for limited government
Hmm.
with more individual liberty,
Correct.
right? And also, also talking about free market
Yes.
because the limited government with more personal or individual freedom
Hmm.
gives you a more chance of see free market,
That's
and
absolutely
that's
right.
his ideology, basic ideology. Let me ask you, sir, are those three elements forming the structure of the party instead of, I mean, in addition to yourself?
Oh, absolutely. If you take a look at the party platform nationally and even our state party platform, it really all starts with constitutional governance. We believe in the American Constitution, which really calls for checks and balances and a limited role for the federal government, much more limited than it actually has today. And that will push government, according to the 10th Amendment, back to the states, where the people directly elect their representatives at their cities, counties, and statewide level. And so what you find is if you get government out of the way, people are very dynamic at their ability to solve problems. And it doesn't even have to be in the for-profit sector, it can be in the nonprofit sector as well. But that's where people are doing it rather than government. And it becomes a very dynamic situation that allows us to have growth that will employ a lot more people than we've been doing.
Easily and commonly understood. Questions, however, still remain to limitations, right?
Sure.
To what extent shall government be to be the limited, the definition of a limited? And on the other hand, individual freedom, individual liberty. To what extent shall we allow or provide the individual liberty? Do you have something? I know those are kind of like hard issues to quantify, but still there might be some areas that you can indicate to my audience, please.
Absolutely.
I believe that my audience, like myself, getting lost, and we want to drag them over or push them over, whichever way, right?
Well, you know, I think the Constitution states it really clearly that the main purpose of the federal government is to provide for the common defense and promote the general social welfare. So the common defense is the thing that the country is supposed to do, number one. When you then take that back to the state and the local level, that indicates to the average person and to myself that public safety is the number one function of government. It's the one thing that you can't have private people do. You know, you need to have that level playing field, and that's your police, your fire, your courts, your roads, your infrastructure. And then after that, if you let people have freedom to run within that society so that, you know, my right to swing my arm doesn't go any further than your nose, right? So that I'm not harming you in doing what I do, then we have a very free and prosperous and peaceful society. And that's what people have always, for 250 years, come to this country to be about.
In other words, your description sounds that you want a government like a parameter, right? Within is your freedom. I make the parameter, the parameter being the basic structure, like a chessboard, right? Like a checkboard, and you play, here's the board, something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be general societal rules. The main thing that the government can do is be the neutral referee. So that's why you have a court system, to prevent somebody from defrauding somebody else. That's why you have a court system that prevents somebody or punishes somebody from robbing from somebody or killing someone. But if you stay within the confines of the general structure, you should be able to have a lot of freedom. And that freedom is what created amazing things like, you know, you had Germans and Dutch come to Pennsylvania, and they had their own societies, and you had British people in Massachusetts and Virginia, and they had their own societies. And yet they were able to come together as a country 250 years ago because each was allowed to have their own freedom. And that's why immigrants have come to this country for 250 years, because they can come here and have absolute freedom to pursue their dreams within their own society.
On the other hand, to compare what we have now, what we see now as government at all levels, federal, state, and local, to the level that you're talking about, how far away? Are we zillions of miles away, or we have only holes to fix? That's it.
I think we're a long way away.
Long way.
I think we're a long way away. I think we have allowed government to grow to such a great extent over a long period of time. In particular, I think the last 8 years was particularly damaging. But in California, it's been at least 20 years of allowing government to grow into all sorts of areas of life that we never wanted it to be. And as a result of that, more and more tax money has to come out of the economy to pay for more and more staff in the government to regulate conduct more and more. And as a result of that, you don't have the booming economy that we used to. You don't have the economic opportunity that people used to have.
Let alone the green number of the government employees. Everybody has a pension.
Which is unsustainable.
Pension is eating us up.
Absolutely. It's going to bankrupt. Absolutely. It is going to bankrupt the state of California. The pension system in California is unsustainable as it is right now.
All right. My dear audiences, I'm really touching base with you today because I believe it is a chance for me to learn, to get to know GOP, and it is also to you an opportunity to get to know GOPs. Here in California, we never have the lack of seeing how left people can go, but it is quite a wisdom to slow down a little bit, to look into the right, to see if there's anything nutritious from the right-hand side, right? So today with me is the chairman of GOP of Orange County, council member of the Orange City, very orange, Mr. Whitaker here, Fred Whitaker, to share his thoughts, his ideology with us. So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll go another layer of the issue to really find out what's behind. Stay with us, please. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences, my dear fellow Americans, fellow Californians. You are you're very warmly welcome back to the discussion about our chance of learning things. Learning being never too late to learn. You always have a chance, have an opportunity to learn. For example, doing this job for many, many years, I just really I don't take it as a job. I take it as my privilege because I learn every single day. Because I see lots of people, different people. They are all high profile, high standard, people. So that get me elevated, right? So I'm elevated to a certain level. I'm thinking about, am I doing the right thing? Am I seeing all of the world? May not be the case. So I started looking around to see, I have seen left to left, do I have something on the right? I'm looking to the right to see what's there. With me today is my good friend, the chairman of GOP party of Orange County, also council member of GOP party, council member of Orange City, Mr. Fred Whitaker. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Jack. Happy to be here.
Very good. We were at the bottom issue, at the first layer issue of limited government, right? Yet limited government has a quantification to do. So the quantification being that down to the very bottom, you're talking about a parameter the government provides, and we the people, taxpayers, are the players.
That's right.
As how you guys play your own game, I'm only a referee, neutral referee.
That's what government should be.
And who the loser is, the winner is, we have a quota system. All right, that's it. Something like that.
Right.
That's the way government should be, right? Okay,
correct.
Very good. That pretty much quantifies. Yet with that as a checkpoint, though, you look at California, our infrastructures. I really have to say, the government has failed us.
I agree.
Do you think so?
I think California has completely failed us on infrastructure. If you look 50 years ago, our infrastructure in California was the envy of the entire country.
Yes, you
and
are
we
right.
were still a fairly low tax jurisdiction. What has happened over the last 50 years is that our tax burden has risen dramatically, mostly going into pet programs, social welfare payments, and at the same time we've ignored and pensions, absolutely pensions. And yet we've ignored the infrastructure. you know, this whole controversy right now about the gasoline tax that they just passed and increased. Starting November 1st, 12 cents a gallon to everybody for gasoline, 19 cents a gallon for diesel. Starting January 1, another $50 to $175 on your car registration to somehow pay for road construction. Well, you think about, we have the highest gasoline taxes and some of the highest car registration fees in the entire country. Where did all that money go? What they don't tell you, Jack, is that years ago, they raided all those funds that were meant for highway. We collect a lot of tax already.
Yeah,
and they put it into they put it into other programs.
Yes, sure.
So for instance, 50 years ago, Caltrans was the envy of the whole country. And Caltrans managed lots of independent contractors, lots of construction contractors to build roads. Now Caltrans just has a bureaucratic staff.
I myself can testify in court, all right, I can put myself under oath that at least 34 years ago, Caltrans was the model, the envy of not only the country, but on global Earth. Why am I saying that? I came here 34 years ago, right?
Right.
First letter I wrote back to my folks in China, I said, I fall asleep driving on freeways.
Because
Why?
they're so good.
Because I am driving on a mirror. Literally on a mirror. I hear nothing but shh, like that. Now, you tell me what we're driving.
Now we're driving things that on roads that destroy our suspensions.
We're driving bumping cars.
Yeah.
We're driving Disneyland cars. Yep. Crazy trends like that, kind of that.
There's not a freeway that doesn't have potholes, cracks, and we have an immense staff at Caltrans that's not doing its work.
Where did the money go?
Well, the money went into staff that doesn't do its work. The money went into, we have the highest poverty rate of any state in the nation, so we have the highest social welfare payments of any state in the nation. We have the richest pensions for any state in the nation for our government employees.
And by the way, those pension numbers were the numbers our golden years, made of the golden years. So when it's no longer golden, we still have to keep up the number. Am I right?
Absolutely. Can you imagine retiring at 50 years old?
Well,
that's what a California public safety employee gets to do.
If I retired 50 years, I would have died twice already. I would have died starvation of twice
In the private sector, we work very hard to put golden handcuffs on people to make sure that they stay past their 50s into their 60s. Why? Because these are the people who know their job the best. They're the most productive. They can be mentors for the people that are coming up.
Oh, you're right.
We want experienced people to stay in the workforce. In government, we encourage people to retire early, and then they get paid their wage.
You can't afford. You can't afford to do it.
Yeah, you can't afford it.
The private sector, you're talking about, well, they talk about us government employees.
Yeah.
Private sectors, if they push us to retire age 50, we're going to die.
Absolutely. You can't support it. And so the private sector wants people to work. The government sector doesn't want people to work. And we'll pay them their wage for the rest of their life. It's unsustainable,
and
Jack.
All they want to do is tax. And they are still taxing.
Yes.
Like you mentioned with the gasoline tax, right? Which is November 1st.
Right.
And then January 1st. Right?
For the car registration.
For the car registration, $175 per. Something like that.
Exactly.
Now, they have, the biggest excuse they have is they need the money for the infrastructure. Am I right?
That's the excuse, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember it right, there were twice we had measures for infrastructures.
Yes, we did.
In other words, we voted yes to the measures.
Yes, we did.
In other words, we gave them money, including Jack Shaw's money. Right? We all went, the money all went there. Where did the money go?
Well, that's a great question because nobody can tell.
The money.
The money from those bonds has gone into the system and not produced anything.
Okay, now, who gives who or gave who the right to dispatch or to allocate the money not the way originally it was designed?
That's the state legislature. And that state legislature is 2/3 controlled by Democrats. And what they do with their 2/3 majority is they say, we're not going to be concerned with where the voters want the money to go. We're going to put the money where we want it to go, and then come back to you later and ask for more money because we didn't do what you wanted us to do.
Sounds like myself. When I was little, Mom gave me, like, say, I can't remember exactly how much, was $5, for example, $5
Sure.
for a backpack, right? I used the backpack, I got myself a pair of ski-board thing, right? Okay, and then I'm asking my mom for backpack.
Right.
And Mom's choice was only between seeing me without a backpack or with a backpack, give up another $5.
Right.
And of course, she always surrender.
Right.
It's the same story we're doing.
Exactly.
I was a naughty boy.
Right. And the legislature's a naughty boy, and coming back to we, the taxpayers, are the parents, and coming back to us for more money.
For that.
In the private sector.
I was under 18, of course. That's why I didn't go to jail. I believe they're all above 18 or older, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So somebody has to go to jail about misallocating the taxpayers' money.
But the right of the legislature is to spend the money how they want. What we as voters and taxpayers need to do is vote in people that are going to be more responsible. We, for years, have been voting in people who are irresponsible. It's really comes back to us. The legislature's been irresponsible, but it's the voter who put them there. And so we as voters need to be more careful about who we put there, make sure that there's a balance and a check on the incredible spending that's going on.
I really wish that there goes some kind of organization that systematically or consistently publish their voting records.
There's some good ones.
Publish everybody's voting record on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I like the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. They were the original sponsors of Proposition 13, which is one of the few things that are good in California. It limits the growth of property taxes. They do a nice voter guide on every tax measure. You know, any type of fee, tax, you name it. They track all the legislators' votes on those particular types of measure. Right, just on fee and tax increases. And so it's a good one. There's there's the California Taxpayers Association, they do one. The California Chamber of Commerce does one. But I like the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association one the best.
Okay, very good, very good. My dear audience, today I'm going back to classroom once again. I got my chance to know a little more about the GOP party. The GOP party is one of the strongest political parties, only two of them of the United States. Now you're talking about 3 or 4, I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay, and we start to see some logic. The logic being, the bigger the government, the less freedom you have.
That's right.
The less freedom you have, the more tax you have to pay. The more tax you pay, the worse is your infrastructure. So logically,
it's all right there.
mathematically, it doesn't work that way. But logically, it is the way. Am I right?
Absolutely the way.
Right. With me today is my good friend, Fred Whitaker. He is the council member of Orange City, and he is the chairman of the GOP party of Orange County. And he's been on with the GOP party ever since he was in his early 20s. And starting all the way from 1995 all the way to 1998, and from 2007 to 2011, he's been chair, vice chair, and always with chair with the Orange County GOP party. And also, you were once the Orange County Republican Central Committee for the 60s and the 68 Assembly District.
Right. That's how we get elected.
That's a big area.
It is, and that's how I ended up becoming an officer in the Republican Party of Orange County. We elect our leaders directly. So in each state assembly district, we elect 6 people.
I see.
And those 6 people in every assembly district, there's 7 assembly districts in Orange County, there's 42 of us on the committee. And of those 42, we elect our officers. And so at various times over the last 25 years, I've been a first vice chairman, a second vice chairman, and now the chairman.
You're much better based, all right? And you have more root here. All right, let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, I have a thought. We pick up those issues that I happen to share the same ground with my friend, Mr. Whitaker. How about if I try something that I assumed that you and I may not take the same ground?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, good.
Happy to.
All right, let's take a moment out. When we come back, we will continue to see how we fight or how we agree to each other. Stay with us, please. Hello, my dear friends, lovely audiences. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. It's a discussion, as a matter of fact, about how you want California to be better.
Absolutely.
In simple language, right? Regardless of whichever party or partisanship we're talking about, we want to get a chance to know the GOP party, right? So, well, I started to see something falls in the same ballpark, on the same common ground that between me and Mr. Whitaker, in the senses about the government size versus individual liberty versus free market, which kicks the economy grow.
Yeah.
Right, something like that. Ideologically, here, conceptually, we're talking about there are some quite challenges. For example, gun control. And that has been a problem ever since, and never been dropped off. Only every time when there is an incident, like what happened previous Sunday in Las Vegas, it goes viral, gone viral again. And then later, like say a month or two later, it subdues, and then it comes back on and forth, on and forth, on and on, so off and on this thing, right? Now, every time when people say gun control, the other side will bring you Constitution Amendment number 2.
Correct.
As a matter of fact, a gun control is not an overturn Amendment 2. It's only to find measures to control your guns, that over which you have the right by Constitution, right? What's your take, please? Your personal take or the party take?
Well,
the GOP take,
my personal take and the party's take are the same. There have been reasonable gun restrictions going back to 1968 on handguns, going back to 1986 on automatic weapons. Even the bump stock issue, which where he was able to turn that non-automatic into an automatic. If you look at the current regulations, bump stocks are illegal, and yet he was able to put them together. So I think
President Obama.
Oh no. I'm talking about the
during Obama's time. The bump stock.
The bump stock has been on the regulations as something that you're not supposed to allow, at least for 10 years. And so part of the thing that you're seeing is that the government, even as big as it is not very effective at enforcing its own rules. So we'll have a tragedy like Las Vegas, which was absolutely horrible. And people will use that tragedy to make more laws that make them feel good, but they actually aren't going to accomplish anything. For me, and if I look at the Second Amendment, and I look at the gun regulation that we have today, and I look at gun crimes and murders per 1,000 people, we are actually at a low in murders per 1,000 people over the last 20 years, with gun ownership at one of the highest points it's been in the last 20 years.
I see.
And so part of the reason there was a Second Amendment, and the American ethos is different than many other countries, because we were born in a revolution. And part of that revolution had to do with the British trying to confiscate all the weapons to make sure that nobody could rebel against them. And so the Second Amendment is there to make sure the citizenry can protect itself from a tyrannical government. And so that's always been in the American ethic. Very interesting study that was in the New York Times last week. If you took just the votes of gun owners versus non-gun owners across the nation, President Trump won with gun owners in every state except Vermont. And non-gun owners, Hillary Clinton won with non-gun owners in every state except West Virginia. So if you want to look at the great divide in American politics today, actually gun ownership is the great divide, because gun owners overwhelmingly across all 50 states, conservative or liberal states, voted with President Trump, and non-gun owners in conservative and liberal states across all 50 states voted for Hillary Clinton. And so it really comes down to how much control do you want in your life. I mean, you look at Texas, where they have pretty permissive gun rules. People, it's an open carry state. Somebody can have a holster on their side in Texas. They have very low crime rates. You look at California, where we have some of the highest gun regulations. You look at Chicago, which actually has some of the most expansive regulations on guns. We actually have high crime rates. And I think part of it is because criminals will always violate law. They do not go and find ways to comply with the law to buy weapons. They will go on the black market. They will smuggle weapons in. They will steal weapons from other people.
I see what you mean.
Whereas law-abiding citizens, if you tell me by state law that I can't have this type of gun, I'm not going to buy it.
You are only depriving the right for law-abiding citizens,
correct,
not to have a gun, as versus the criminals who is going to get one anyway.
Well, and I can tell you that as good a police department as we have in the city of Orange, their average response time is 3.5 minutes. So if I'm out a lot doing political events and my wife is home alone, she has gone and gotten a gun and had gun training because she's concerned that if an intruder comes into the house, she won't be able to call the police in time or defend herself in time. I see. And I think that's a very legitimate right for people to be secure in their homes.
I see. All right, thank you very much. And I really like the fact that you did touch the issue, and also the one side of the issue that the strict gun control states only put more restrictions on already law-abiding citizens,
right,
to deprive their chances of self-defense, whereas the bad guys, criminals, are criminals anyway.
They're never going to comply with the law.
Black market,
right?
Yeah, they can find a piece anyway. All right, that makes a good point. What it doesn't make a point to me, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't make sense.
Sure.
I'm saying that it doesn't make sense to me was that you a while ago mentioned one phenomenon in which that Donald Trump runs the support of all gun owners,
right,
except Vermont.
Except Vermont.
And Hillary Clinton won all the non-gun owners except Virginia.
West Virginia.
West Virginia,
right.
for example. Okay, now. And by mathematics, if I have a handful of beans and a handful of peanuts, right? I put them together, I shatter them down on the table.
Right.
What you see?
A mix of
right, peanuts and the beans.
Yes.
All right. Okay,
and that's what we have in the country.
Now, in the country, how come all the gun owners goes to GOP side? All the non-gun owners goes to the Democratic side. So now there has to be something that divides them.
I think it gets
back. You know what I'm saying?
I think it gets back to our very first subject, and that was the idea of individual liberty and a more limited government. So somebody who is a gun owner is typically going to be more suspicious of a lot of government control. Somebody who's not a gun owner is more typically, not always, but more typically going to say, I'm okay with government being involved in more things and writing more rules. And so they will often think that gun control, a set of rules, is a proper form for government to be involved in. And so I think it comes down to part of that overarching 40,000 foot all the way back at the beginning philosophy.
It indignates all the way back to where we started.
Yes.
That people who believe that we should have a little government, let us ourselves do the rest of it.
Right.
Prefer to have guns to take care of their business themselves.
That's correct.
And then by then, they are defined as GOPs. And people, on the contrary, wanting for a bigger government to do the job, they don't have to do the defense whatsoever. They are not the fun of guns.
Right.
I first heard about it. That probably takes some time for me to absorb, and I'm chewing on it now. So, except that, any other reasons you think I see the phenomenon what I see?
I think that you know, folks who are gun owners primarily are not in urban areas. Voters who are gun owners, for the most part, are in suburban and more rural areas, where you are going to have slower response times for incidents, and you might have a culture where people have always had guns and people don't hurt each other. And I think if you look at the non-gun owner vote, the Hillary Clinton vote, it's more in urban areas, right? So in urban areas where there's always been more crime, you see more people hurting each other with guns. And you also, in urban areas, have quicker police response times, so people naturally think, well, I don't need a gun, I can call the police. Why would anybody need a gun? And it also, so it gets also to what you saw in the last election, the urban-rural divide. So for instance, I don't know if it's an interesting statistic, just like that one we were talking about with guns.
Very much so, yes.
But if you took out the vote of New York City and you took out the vote of Los Angeles, Donald Trump won the popular vote. But those two cities, our largest cities in America, those two cities combined, when you add in their vote,
they go contrary to each other.
Well, both of those cities are highly Democratic. Both of those cities are very liberal. And when you add those votes in, then Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So it's an urban versus rural divide in the United States as well. And so you're going to have more gun ownership and more view of guns being necessary to liberty and freedom in the rural areas or suburban areas than you will in the urban areas.
Okay. That's very thorough. I like that analysis. And lastly, why Vermont and West Virginia?
It's such an interesting anomaly. Vermont has always had a large gun-owning population because it's rural, but it's always been very liberal. So Bernie Sanders, the socialist who ran against Hillary Clinton, is from Vermont, but he has a 95% rating with the NRA. So he's a socialist who's pro-guns. And Vermont, I think, is that entire way. West Virginia is a state that is largely defined by the coal industry. So whether you owned a gun in West Virginia or didn't own a gun, your family in some way is touched by the coal industry. President Obama had an 8-year war against coal and nearly devastated the economy and the families in West Virginia. Whereas President Trump said, we produce clean coal in this country. Coal is used throughout the world for energy. We need to be energy independent. We're going to restore the coal industry. And so I think in West Virginia, whether you had a gun or didn't have a gun, your family was touched by coal, and that's why they voted for President Trump.
All right, all right. I thank you very much. I should say thank you very much. This is a very thorough analysis. I believe to my audience, those are eye-openers. Let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll touch the last area to see if we have common ground or not. So stay with us. Hello, my lovely audience, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have this very rare opportunity to be with a good friend of mine, Fred Whitaker. He is the chairman of GOP Party for Orange County, council member of Orange City. He and he's sharing, as a matter of fact, his concept with me to my audiences because it is me who suggested it might be a time that we look into the right, see what's missing, right? Of course, there's nothing wrong doing that. There's nothing wrong looking left, there's nothing wrong looking right. But if you keep your eyes always on the left or always on the right, you only know half of the world.
Right.
Right. Now let's know the whole world. That's why I named the show called or Getting to Know the GOP Party. Right. So with me, my friend Whitaker are giving lots of his precious statement. I believe some of which are the first ones I've heard. Anyway, now the last ground I want to check with you to see if our common ground or not is the same-sex marriage. Where or how do you take on this same-sex marriage? I mean, legalization. I'm not talking about the fact.
Right.
Right. Man and man, women and women get together. Okay. Right. Oh, by the way, whatever I say here stands only for me, myself. I want to make a disclaimer that I am representing only myself for the following speech whatsoever, right? Okay, now, I have no problem who gets along with who. I only have problem, still today, even the Supreme Court has passed,
Right.
even with the law there,
Right.
I still want to say that I have a problem because it devalued, it depreciated what I believe, right? So now, where do you see?
Well, the California Republican Party, as well as the National Republican Party, believes in traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and it's in our platform. Now that the Supreme Court has decided that same-sex marriage is a constitutional protection under individual liberty, there's not a tremendous amount we can do for that. But one of the things that we can do for the traditional voter, for the society that follows kind of the same ethos, is that we can focus on religious liberty. So, for instance, you see these poor bakers who have been sued.
I was exactly going to mention
because
that.
because they did not feel comfortable baking a cake for a same-sex wedding, even though they have baked goods for these gay couples in the past, but for the wedding, because the wedding is a traditional element of their religion.
Wait. I'm very sorry for this insert, right?
Sure.
You go to Home Depot, you check about the sign section. In the sign section, there is a sign that says, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone."
Right.
How about that? How about apply that as a piece of law?
Well, and that's the thing where I think we as the Republican Party can have influence, because the courts, especially in the Hobby Lobby case and some others, have generally found with our position with respect to religious liberty. And you're talking about that with President Trump basically saying that, simply because you have a deeply held belief, you can say, I don't want to participate in this same-sex marriage.
Activity.
And in this activity. And I think that's critically important, getting back to that 40,000-foot constitutional purpose of individual liberty, right? So when people came to this land initially from Europe, we had Quakers in Massachusetts, we had Baptists in Rhode Island, we had Catholics in Maryland, we had Dutch and German Lutherans in Pennsylvania, we had Anglicans in Virginia, and so everybody was able to practice as they believed. And what we are now having with same-sex marriage, I believe, is a civic religion being imposed on people who have deeply religious beliefs and deeply cultural beliefs, right? And so I think that's where the Republican Party can have influence on that issue, is by standing up for people that they are allowed to live out their own beliefs and not be forced into kind of a secular orthodoxy that isn't, I find, very cohesive for society.
All right. Now, problem is that there's a law there.
Yes.
Right? Of course, I'm not going to violate the law.
Right.
And my violation to the law would put myself in jail. But
or cost you a lot of money, one of the two.
Yeah, a lot of money. May I have a right to disagree with the law?
Yes, absolutely.
I do, right? My disagree meaning that I will never marry a man.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, and then it's my choice, right?
Correct.
And the poor baker refused to get involved.
Right. And there's lots of other bakers that will do a wedding cake for them.
Ahead.
Right.
Right. So, like say you go for a number 10 or 11, 12 size of boots, and this shoemaker doesn't have it. Oh, next door there might be your size, something like that kind of, right?
Right.
Why we are cruel on that one? I don't want your on the first layer explanation. I understand. I want to peel it off why we have to be that cruel.
I don't understand why we have to be that cruel. I don't know that I can answer the question, Jack. I mean, I think...
You don't know either.
I don't either. I think it has become a civic religion for the left to say we're going to impose our values on everyone else, regardless of what your deeply held beliefs are. However, and so they're making it law, and that infringes liberty.
However, why do they have to touch the word marriage? Can they choose some kind of rhetorically do something better, say a union, a tribe?
But the thing is, we've had that. We've had domestic partnerships in California for 30 years. It's already been the law in California for 30 years. I think the reason that the secular left wanted to use the word marriage was to essentially say that your marriage, which was designed for human procreation, essentially, for having children, for the promotion of society in general, is no greater value than our desire to have couples of same sex have a relationship. It was to actually make them equal in people's thoughts. And so they wanted to use the word.
Do you or do they, I would say they, now that you and I are on the same ground, I'm happy about that. Do they consider the fact that we have kids to be educated, right? Posterities keeps on coming, right? How are we going to explain to them about man-woman relationship? How about sex education? Okay, let's talk about sex education, all right?
Well, Jack, I mean, I don't know if you are aware, but the entire pedagogy, which is the curriculum that is now being designed and promoted in the California public schools, is starting with education in as early as 5th grade, telling kids about same-sex relationships, same-sex marriage. I think that is totally destructive to folks who have traditional values and want to control how their message about sex to their kids is. And so, but once again, it comes back to the secular religion of the left, that they're trying to impose their values through the education system to destroy the traditional color. Yeah, I am a lawyer.
You are a lawyer. I found that from your resume. Or otherwise, I would even dare not say it. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I may or may not say that, right? When we were little, we learned from textbook with a little illustration of the general of the part, All right. Are you saying that we're going to do different pictures?
They're already there. They're already there. That's the sad thing. They're already there.
I want to cry.
Yeah. But what I want to protect, yes.
So what I'm saying is not wrong, right?
No, it's not wrong. So what I want to do, and what I think that the GOP can do, is that we know the Supreme Court has already decided the same-sex marriage issue. But what we can do, because for those of us who believe in traditional values, is that we can promote individual and religious liberty, so that I can have my kids opt out of that type of education. That I can't be forced into listening to that point of view, right? So that I can raise my family the way I wish, so that I don't have to, if I have a bakery, participate in a ceremony that I don't wish to participate in.
Yeah, the best way to do, never let your kids open a bakery. That's it. That's for safe.
That's true, low margins.
That's for safe, right?
Low margin business, yeah.
All right. My lovely audiences, I really wish we can go on. I do enjoy talking to my friend, Mr. Whitaker. Learning a lot, feeling so bad. I'm so regretful that I put this last issue at the end. We should reverse it. Make some happy issue to wrap up with, or otherwise we're kind of saddened. Anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity of talking to him. Mr. Fred Whitaker, chairman of GOP party of Orange County and council member of Orange City, very strong, philosophically strong, kind of leader of the community. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And I want you one last promise that next time when I need you, don't take me that long, please.
I won't. Jack, it's always good to be here.
Okay, good. Very good.